We're back with the Truth and Legend podcast, and today we've got a really special guest, a good friend of mine, and Eric has actually worked with her as well. Her name is Harriet Bailey, and she comes to us from New Jersey at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And you are a producer, director in the wildlife film industry. And would you say wildlife film industry, or would you just go even further than that, like history and...
Yeah, I guess I came up through the sort of science TV angle. So I don't want to limit myself. If someone wants to give me a job and it's to do with science more broadly, but definitely factual. I have been on a few sort of narrative shoots, and they are crazy. There's too many people on those, so definitely factual. But yes, science in general, and I've been sort of narrowing into wildlife over the past sort of 5-6 years.
So give us a little history on yourself, because you have a dual citizenship, and then you actually were born, I think, in the U.S., and then you moved to the U.K., and then you've moved back.
Yes. So I was born in Philadelphia. The only one in my family who was my parents lived over here and had me, so I could apply for a passport, which I did when I was 11. But I grew up in the UK, and hence the accent and the sarcasm and the general morose humor. Yeah, so I moved over here almost 9 years ago now. I had been wanting to move to New York for ages, and I had the passport, and I didn't have to deal with any of the visa things, which is very lucky. So yeah, I had a job that lasted 6 months, which was long for me. Saved up money, bought a ticket, came over, had a suitcase and my bike, and yeah, just sort of started again. When I was back in London, I had been in TV for sort of 6 or 7 years, and I had been going up the career ladder, had made it to assistant producer, and was getting jobs and was doing quite well. And then I decided just to chuck it in and come over here. So starting from the ground again, being sort of a production assistant and working on whatever I could get. But yeah, that was like 9 years ago, and now I'm here, which is a good place to be.
That's a good story. I remember you told me all that. Harry and I have, now her name is Harriet Bailey, but she goes by Harry. So when I say Harry and I have been, that's Harry. She and I were in the Arctic for 3 weeks, and that was the first time I ever met you. And I think we had never met in person. We talked on the phone a couple of times, and every time we talked on the phone, we're like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this?" Because we're dealing with like minus 45-degree temperatures, and we're both like, "Yeah, we'll do it, but maybe not. I don't know." And
you think it's safe?
yeah, you think I was calling her for? She didn't know it, but I was calling her for moral support, and I don't know if she was relying on me. But we actually met in Fairbanks, so
Yeah.
that's where all this started. So,
But you're used to you're used to these sort of Arctic, Alaska landscapes.
He leaves
And
in the winter, though. He's a
yeah,
snowbird.
I'm definitely used to it, and I definitely don't mind it. But the minus 45 got me, and then I had to call a mutual friend just to say, should I be doing this? And he was like, "Yeah, you're fine."
yeah. I just had no concept of minus. Fahrenheit and Celsius cross at minus 40, and I don't know anything minus 5. I just was totally ignorant and very excited. So I was like, yeah, I think they must have figured it out. They're a whole production company. And then you get there and you're like, oh, okay. It all hinges on these two people who are quite wild.
So before we go any further, last week we were talking about we were setting up this podcast to do it with you, and you said that you were going to do a bird trip this past weekend. So I thought that might be a fun thing to talk about and see what you saw, because everybody you live in New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody thinks of New Jersey as New York, I think, or very populated urban. But I think there's actually quite a bit of wildlife out there.
There is. Yeah.
And you actually also run a birding club, right? So that was the reason for your trip, and then you took your club out to a location to look for what?
Weird ducks. It was a weird duck event. So weird duck season, it was coined by somebody a few years ago, and all the ducks from up north sort of overwinter or stop over here, and it's in in sort of January and February, you get all the strange aquatic birds in one spot. So yeah, we have this bird club. It's called the Feminist Bird Club. It started off in New York, and we have the Jersey City chapter. And it's really a way to encourage or just bring together people who live in Jersey City, which is a massively urban environment, very post-industrial. People think it's super polluted, and it is. There's a lot of super fun sites around, but there's also a lot of places for birding. And yeah, we went to a place called DeCourt Park, which is an old landfill. There's like 4 or 5 ex-landfills in the city, but they're great birding spots because they get turned into parks, and there's not a lot you can do with the landfill except turn it into a park or a golf course. So usually the birding spots are close to golf courses as well. Yeah, so we went out on Saturday, and it was a great day, and we had like 35 people show up, which is cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've been around for a couple of years, and at the beginning, we had like 5-10 people, but yeah, it's really grown, and people are super interested in birds. And where you're in a space where there's not so much immediate nature, people are really pining for that connection and that sense of community. And yeah, we sort of let people know where to go and where they can bird. So what we saw, and I don't know if this will cross over with birds you have over in your spot, but we had green-winged teal, we had a lot of ruddy ducks, we had some pintails. There's always with Jersey birding, there's always a point where you're looking out across the wetland and you see a sort of shape, and you're like, is that a bird or is that trash? And you have like a group of people with a scope on it. They're like, I just can't tell. I don't know. It's like got black and white in it, and it's like, oh no, it's an old tire. But sometimes it's a bird, and this time it was like there was this pintail that was all coiled up, and we couldn't figure out what it was. And then it stuck its beak out, and it's like, oh, pintail, beautiful. Yeah, what else? A lot of canvasbacks. There was probably a redhead in the canvasback somewhere, but we didn't manage to see it.
I love ruddy ducks because they're just little, they're cute, they got their little beak.
Tail, little beak.
Do we even have them in Colorado?
Infrequently.
I don't think I've ever seen one here.
I've tried so hard to get one because they have that blue beak, and I've struck out every time.
Come to Jersey.
I will.
Right now, there's like hundreds of them. Yeah, because Jersey's a great spot because it's on the Atlantic Flyway, and yes, you have all these birds that migrate. Spring is absolutely chaotic. It's a party every day. It's great. And Jersey actually has now, I want to say, the most different habitats of a state. You might have to fact check me on that. I'm good at I have a lot of stories and things that are interesting, but I'm a little flaky on the actual statistics of it. So maybe at the end we can go through and fact check everything I've said. But yeah, there's just it's super biodiverse or habitat diverse. It just also happens to be the most densely populated state in the country. So coming back from Alaska back to Jersey was a bit of a shock. But yeah, but it's great for birds. There's Cape May at the bottom, which is a super birding spot. And I've done some New Year's walks down there, and they have all the secret group chats. I don't know if you guys are in any birding chats, like rarities and everything.
Yeah, we have the Denver field ornithologists here in Denver. That bunch of bird nerds, but I love it.
Yeah, we're with all the wait, what was I trying to say? Oh yeah, with all the rare bird alerts and things like that. Do you have vagrants that come over to Alaska or to Denver?
We had a snowy owl during that eruption. I mean, it was probably 6-7 years ago, and that was it was crazy. I took 3 vacation days trying to get this bird, and someone would spot it on top of a chimney, and there's 20 of us just hiking through this little city park, and the bird's probably stressed, but at the same time, you're trying so hard. I just want to see it through my binoculars. So yeah, we have our fair share.
Eric, you get a lot of randos, don't you, in Alaska?
Yeah. Yeah, this time of year is not great for stuff showing up. Just there's really not much around. Um, Summertime, yeah, spring and fall are always huge. See what shows up. This year, Harry, you'd probably be excited, is a massive cone year. So the crossbills are everywhere, the red poles are everywhere. The finch numbers are just super high all over Alaska. There's things like Cassin's finch is not common for us at all, like any of the house finch, Cassin's purple, at least this far north. And I think there's 8 of them in Homer that right now. So that
Wow.
shows you something's really shifting things around with the food sources and who knows what other factors. But
Yeah, I
yeah, it's
definitely
been
need to.
kind of exciting. So even though it's a quote for us, kind of a common bird, it's uncommon to have them just covering every tree. So that's been fun.
It's great. You'll have to take some photos. Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to come to Alaska and go birding.
Yeah, for sure.
I told Harry about the white raven too, Eric. Maybe you
Oh
can
yeah,
just
that's
clue
right.
her in a little bit more on that because I didn't know very much about it.
Yeah, there's been raven with the leucism, so it's almost all white. It's got a blue eye. It's really pretty. But there was a bird down on the Kenai, a couple hours south of Anchorage, this summer that was a white raven, and I don't know if this is the same bird. I don't know if anyone's really been able to tell. But another one just popped up in Anchorage in the fall, and it's been seen almost every day. It flies from the mountains down and hangs out in the Spinard area by these like apartment complexes and restaurants, and then in the evening they all fly back up to the mountains to roost. So I've gone a couple times, but I don't. I mean, and this isn't an urban environment compared to the same levels, but it feels pretty quickly like in an urban environment when you're going up and down like an alleyway with dumpsters and people everywhere. Like, all right, this isn't my style of relaxing time. So I haven't done a lot with it, but it's kind of
Does it
fun to
hang
see.
out with a group of black ravens?
Yeah, for the most
Oh,
part, there's probably like a dozen or so that all hang out in this kind of general area and they interact with each other.
so is
That's been
you
fun.
said leucistic? Is that
Leucism or
leucistic?
leucistic. Yeah, so
Is
it's
that
not
different to
complete.
albinism? Okay.
Yeah, so there's still some pigment, so it's not a complete lack of pigment where you'd have like a pink eye. It's got color in the eye, and there's a little bit of black wash, like at the tips of some of the feathers. So, but it for the most part looks almost pure white.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a cool bird. Been very popular. Massive Facebook group blew up within like the first week, and there's constantly sightings and pictures and everything. So it's kind of
I
our
mean,
little
he's been
celebrity
around for
right
a
now.
long time, right? I mean, this
Yeah, all
started back
fall.
when I was in Anchorage, I think in November, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of talk at
Has it got a
first
name
about
yet?
whether or not it would survive. Like, would it need that black coloring to absorb heat? Would it, freeze in the winter? And would it get picked off? Does it look, like a pigeon or something? And maybe a falcon would try and come in. I don't know, but it's still kicking. I still see posts about it all the time. So
I
yeah,
love these. I love all these theories. All these people
yeah,
that
I
have all this
know. It's
time
always
on
fun to
Reddit.
see.
Yeah. We had.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard of Flaco the owl in New York. It's a
I don't think so.
Eurasian
Eagle owl?
eagle owl. Is that maybe it's an
Uh,
eagle owl? It's
A big one?
big bird.
Yeah.
Bigger than a horned owl. And it was in
Oh,
Central
cool.
Park Zoo, and it escaped. I think
mhm.
somebody was involved in letting it out. But yeah, it escaped, and it lived in Central Park for a while, and everybody was like, "It's gonna die. It's gonna eat rat poison. It doesn't know how to fly." Flacco is having the time of his life. He's like flying around. He's like king of the park. He has his tree that he sits in. He's been doing tours of Lower East Side. Yeah, and it's great. And this was like kind of in the middle of the pandemic, so everybody was also like cooped up, and they really felt
Yeah.
connected to this bird who had escaped and was, flying free. So yeah, Blacko.
Yeah. That's funny.
Can you imagine back? So I just recently started watching a YouTube channel called The Desert Drifter, and this is a guy who was a park ranger for a lot of years, and now he started a YouTube channel, and it's blown up. But he just cruises around the desert Southwest and looks for ancient Native American dwellings and ruins, whatever's left. but he finds all these petroglyphs or pictographs. So pictographs are painted on and petroglyphs are chipped into the rock. And he sees all these just really cool figures. But can you imagine being a person at that time and you have all these black birds and then all of a sudden a white bird shows up? And what kind of significance that probably would have?
Yeah.
I
It's a
mean, you
plague
talk
coming.
about our Reddit or our little chat groups. Well, their chat groups are like pecking on rock and leaving a drawing of whatever that was, and then whoever else, But how do you depict, different colors when you're just chipping on rock? But I think about that a lot, where it's like, how did that go? Or whenever you get these anomalies, how did they deal with it?
How do you
Where did they talk
process it
about
all?
it? Was it, what was it? It had to be pretty
Supernatural.
cool.
Throw someone into lava.
Right.
It depends if it's like a devil or an angel.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you have any interest at all in Native American stuff, that channel is pretty cool because the guy just goes on random hikes. And he was an ex-park ranger, so he's not doing anything to destroy. He won't even touch anything. Every now and then he'll pick up a corn cob or something like that was, because a lot of those civilizations grew corn for subsistence. So he might pick up a corn cob and he might pick up a piece of pottery or something. But for the most part, he just leaves it alone. And he's just showing you. And this guy's getting 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 views on all of his videos. So it's kind of cool if you have any interest in the desert Southwest. So moving on, and while we're talking about birds, I know you were on a show. I can't remember the name of it, and I should have done my research before this, but wasn't it Wings?
Wings Over Water.
Wings Over Water.
Yeah.
And was that one of your first gigs in the U.S. when you came back over as far as wildlife, or was that? And just give us a history of that and then what that project was, because I think you can talk about that one because it's been out for a while, right?
Yeah, I can talk about that one. So it was, I guess that was my second natural history gig. My first one was for PBS, and it was American Spring Live, and it was a 3-night live show. So that was also the first time I was directing, and I was kind of thrown into the directing. I didn't realize I was going to be directing that shoot. But I didn't see anyone else's name on the call sheet. And I was like, wait a second. I thought I was producing this, but I didn't realize I was not going to be a director. And my senior producer, Ann Prum, who's wonderful, does a lot of PBS shows. She's like, oh, you'll be fine. And I was like, okay. It's a live show, so you have to be fine. There's like no other way.
Yeah, you don't have an option.
So off the back of that, we were filming moths in Florida, just outside of Gainesville with a super moth scientist called Akito Kawahara, and we had the big white sheet out with the UV light, and all the moths came to the screen. But off the back of that, Anne knew this production company just upstate in New York called Archipelago Films, and they were making this 3D IMAX film called Wings Over Water, and they needed an AP, and I interviewed with them, and they were like, "Oh, it's good. It's a year contract." It ended up being almost 2 years, but I was like, "Wow, I've never had a job for a year. I don't know. Can I do that?" But yeah, it turned out to be great timing because, well, for me in work, because it was just before the pandemic started. So it meant that I was employed for 2 years into the pandemic, which was super lucky. Just like friends and other colleagues in film, just productions shut down, and they had their year planned out, and then it all just fell apart. So I was very lucky to have that job. And we went across the country, spent a lot of time in the Dakotas and in New Mexico, filming these 3 bird species as they made their migrations up to the prairie pothole region, which we rebranded as the prairie wetlands because potholes have a negative connotation. So yeah, that was a huge endeavor. I think it's still out in 3D film. Has anyone? Eric, you've seen it, right?
I haven't.
No.
I don't. There's nowhere. I mean, there are theaters that show it during the IMAX screenings at like some of the large museums that have that, but I haven't found any way to watch it locally, unfortunately. I
Yeah,
actually ran into the what's his? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting
Andy
his name.
Young.
Andy,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
of Archipelago Films. He was in Haynes when I was down there for the shooting the Eagles, so I got to talk to him a little bit about that show. And so I'm dying to watch it, but yeah, I keep looking if I fly into like a big town, if there's a museum or something there, I'm gonna have to try and go watch it on IMAX because I'm really curious to see that IMAX experience.
You have to see it in 3D. Because I'd
Yeah,
only
yeah,
seen it in 2D. Like I've watched it 1,000 times. I could probably
yeah,
narrate it all for you right now. But I'd watch like cuts on my phone. I'd just be sitting there on a train or something watching this really and it's supposed to be, I don't know how big an IMAX screen is, 60 feet wide or something.
yeah,
So the first time I watched it on the actual big screen was just, it was super impressive. But then watching it in 3D blew my
yeah,
mind. I was like,
yeah. That
wow,
would
look
be
at that
really
shot
cool.
that we did. But it's got depth to it. So yeah, there's something about 3D. It seems like a little bit of a gimmick, but I think it's pretty cool.
So do you have to watch or wear the glasses when you watch it in a theater like that?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
were you guys shooting with multiple cameras on the same, or did they do it in post for the 3D, or
They
was it
did it
all
in
multiple
post.
cameras?
Yeah, because I think you can take two cameras out into the field, but can you imagine? Like, and they have to be the same
It'd be
distance
impossible to
apart all the
focus and
time.
everything.
You can do that in a studio when you're doing Lord of the Rings, but it's highly impractical. I know that some people, I think that some people have done it, but we did not.
Right.
You got to prioritize the bird action, and then in post they would composite. They would split each element in the frame and trace it out like the feathers. And we had a lot of grass in the film because it's all about the grasslands. And I remember when the effects team were like, we can't do all the shots. We're not going to cut out every blade of grass as it floats in and out. So it was. I think you end up 95% of it is 3D, and there's a couple of shots. When you have a huge flock of birds that are taken off, that 5-second shot isn't going to be 3D. But a lot of work. The post was, so I finished, everything was happening in parallel, the post and the production. But I sort of rolled off as the post and the effects were going on because I'm an in-field kind of producer.
So two things on that. You said AP, and I just want you to explain what AP is because I don't think the average person will know what that is. And then secondly, you had come to moved to New York, and then all of a sudden you're cruising around the country. And didn't you drive a box truck because you had to like drive some of the stuff around? That had to be an awesome experience because you wanted to come over here and see a bunch of stuff, right? And that was like the perfect opportunity to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, number one. What was number one?
AP.
AP is either associate producer or assistant producer. I think one's maybe a British term and one's an American term. So I came up through the editorial channel. I know you asked me about history before, and I've just been doing little pieces here and there. So I started off as a researcher, and then did a little bit of production coordinating as well, and then became an AP associate or assistant producer, and then sort of a track into producer director. So instead of doing the sort of filming and production side like you guys are, I was doing more of the story and the background. And there's a bunch of different ways of getting to every position, and everybody has a different way of getting there. But I was always quite focused on story, and I'm quite an organized person, so I love a spreadsheet. And so you get handed these roles, and you just jump in and do them. And then wait, what was the second question?
The box truck.
Oh, that was the box truck. That was a separate shoot. That was another PBS program.
Oh, that wasn't the Wings one?
That wasn't Wings. No,
Oh, I thought it was Wings.
No, did I drive much on Wings? Yeah, I think. Well, we had a truck because you couldn't fly because it's the pandemic. So we did have to drive everywhere, but it was. Oh no! Did we fly? No. Did we drive to Dakota? No, I must have flown out. And there was like nobody on the plane. Oh my gosh! It's such a long time ago, but it was so recent.
Yeah.
But we had a production van, and Andy, director, and Brandon, who's camera assistant, would like drive out there for a 4-day road trip, and then just be driving around the country. So they must have flown in. Because you got as somebody working in media, we had sort of passes to move between states because we were doing journalism. It wasn't like immediate journalism. It wasn't breaking news, but it was important. It was important reporting. The truck was. Say again?
No, I was going to say you need something to watch. That might be an emergency if you run out of Netflix or whatever.
Exactly. Well, that's why so much natural history was commissioned over the pandemic, because everybody was just consuming. And now we have too much. Well, you can never have too much. But the thing with natural history is that it's evergreen. You know, you could like watch Planet Earth 1 and it still be relevant. That's why it's challenging at the moment. But the truck was for a PBS show where we were going across the country. It was about aging, and we had different like parent-child couples in different parts of the US, and it would be a millennial and their parent. So their parent would be not, they're aging, but they're not they don't feel old yet. And we were talking about, what's going to happen in the next 5-10 years. And we had this truck, which we turned into a mobile studio, so that we could have do these interviews and have the same sort of setup for each person in these different places. So I drove it from New Mexico to Portland, Oregon, to Idaho, down to Texas, and then back to New York. And because it was for production, I was classed as a commercial driver, so I had to keep like the logbook and my hours, and it's all very complicated. You can't drive for more than 16 hours in a 24-hour period. If you drive for 11 hours, you have to have 2 15-minute breaks, and I was really confused by this. So I decided and I had to go through the weigh stations. I'm in a little like 27-foot box truck, and I'm like squeezed between these massive trucks, lorries. What do you call them? Yeah, just trucks.
Semi-trucks.
Semi-trucks. There you go. And so I'm pootling along. And obviously, I don't really have anything in my truck, but I decided to stop off at the first one just to ask, like, am I doing this right? Am I going to be pulled over if I have the wrong numbers? And this guy was like, why are you stopping? I was like, I just want to ask some questions. He's like, oh God, now I have to do some work. And I was like, oh, sorry. And he's like, what are you doing? Driving this empty truck. And I was like, oh, we're making a film. Anyway, I just sounded really suspicious. What's a British person doing driving a truck?
Well, and then you're going around picking up people to interview them in the back of your truck.
Yeah, right?
It's amazing. Come in the back of my truck. I got a camera in there. It'll be fine.
Lock them in. Right. Yeah, and then because we also blocked off the back of the truck so we could have the gear in the back and a light, and then we had a piece of like translucent acrylic to diffuse the light for the inside. So he went into the main part, and he's like, is this walled off? I was like, why is it walled off? And I was like, oh, it's just boxes, equipment. Then I show him the back, unlock the back, and I was like, it's just film gear. He's like, okay, right, I'm done with this person. You can go. Yeah. But that was amazing. I got to see a lot of road infrastructure in America and a lot of landscapes. It's amazing when you're driving for so long how landscapes morph and change, and you see it's not just like the mountains and the prairies, there's like an in-between, an interstitial zone. Mm-hmm. It was very cool. And then you have like different time markings. Like you don't just look at the clock, you look at your gas going down, and you look at the sun as you're on a super straight road through Utah, you look at the sun going over. Yeah. So that was a great experience.
Yeah, I remember. So Harry and I spent a lot of time in a tent in the Arctic, so we told a lot of stories, and that's why I got him kind of confused. I thought the box truck was for that, but now it all comes back. So since you described or told us what an AP does, let's just go on into what a producer director does. Just for people that don't know, what is that role, and how does that, or what do you do in those roles?
Yeah, so like it sounds, it's like two roles. There's a producer and a director, but you only get paid for one. And natural history shoots, you have 3-4 people, so everybody's kind of doing a bit of everything, and that's what I like about working in small teams. It's very collaborative. and you have to pick up and do what needs to be done, whether that's like going to the shops or doing receipts or whatever, cleaning something. Is like everybody, it's a very leveling experience. But producer director. So a producer, I would say, has all the information that you need for the shoot. If you have any question about the shoot, the producer should be able to answer it. So, schedules, locations, liaising with people, all types of paperwork, making sure there is a crew, making sure the crew knows what they're doing, making sure the crew's happy. Getting them ice cream if they need it. That's a producer. And then a director is making the decisions. So they have the vision in mind. They have the story. They're thinking about what shots they need to fill in what's missing. So they're just telling everybody what needs to be done in order to finish a sequence. And then the producer's more like how to do it. So it makes sense that the roles are together. You just have a bit more responsibility. But I've been, I would say, producer director for about 6 years. And there's a bit of crossover when you're like changing roles, going up from one to another. You do some AP roles and some producing roles and then some directing and then more AP work. And I'm trying now just to exclusively take producer director roles. But it depends on the project. And like I say, everyone mucks in. So you end up being a lot of people at the same time. But you have to have opinions and you have to be able to communicate them. I think that's the main thing. Good opinions.
Yeah, I tell you what, I've worked with Harri a couple of times now, and we talk a lot on the phone, and super awesome to work with because it's you have opinions, but it's like all positive kind of stuff. It's never like that irate director that's like, "What in the hell were you thinking?" It's a collaborative. Brandon always has to fix my words because I never get them out right in the podcast. Collaborative effort between all of us, and it was a blast. And Eric worked with Harri when we were on a shoot in Montana, and I think Eric did a lot of that AP work, I would say, too, right? Because you guys ended up working together on downloading and all the organization stuff. It was kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. Did you enjoy that, Eric?
Oh yeah. That was a good experience. Definitely go back to it all the time. Thinking about everything and where it's all led now. So
one where it's at. Yeah. It got finished. It got made into a doc.
Cool.
Yeah. Each shoot has its own peculiarities. But as a PD, I come in and I need to rely on other people because people like you guys spend days and weeks and months out in the field. You have this knowledge that I don't have because I'm either in a city or I'm like by my computer doing my spreadsheets. So it has to be a collaboration. You can't do it alone. So I need you guys.
Just like we need you, because a lot of times we're just so checked out. It's like, well, what are we supposed to do now, or what should we shoot now, or And when we were I think we can talk about this. We can't talk about what we were shooting, but when Harri and I were in the Arctic, we had so many limitations with like travel and how do we get from one place to another, and then you slowly figure stuff out. It's like, well, we can only take 2 people out today because I don't think the snow machine can get more than that out. And then you slowly figure out, well, it's really boring to sit and camp all day. I got this really, really fantastic drawing that Harri did because in the beginning of that shoot, our guide was like, well, we can only haul the camera and you and me on this one snow machine. So Harri would stay back in camp. Well, you figure it's minus 40, minus 30, minus 25. It never was warmer than minus whatever, right? So she would end up staying back in camp and get her work done. But then there was time in the day to be like, well, what am I going to do now? And she did this drawing that was just amazing. She gave it to me at the end of the shoot, and I have it framed in my house in Alaska now. But what we figured out over time was we're just going to push it, and we're all three on the snow machine, and we're all three going to. You had a trailer, and we got it all figured out. But it's one of those deals where it just took us a minute to figure it out. But getting her out there where we were shooting, and instead of having to convey, hey, this is what we're up against, and these are the problems that we're dealing with currently. Getting her out there was so helpful, because then she was able to relay that information back to the home office that is just like, okay, this is what's going on, or we need to change this, or we're not going to be able to do this, or whatever. So as part of her role out there, it was a lot of that. But you have to be there to know, right? So it was super important to have her there.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think one of the main parts of my role is that communication, is being that sort of link between the cinematographers who are focused on trying to get these shots, and should be able just to direct all their attention to that, so they do the best job that they can. And then managing this team, which is usually in Bristol, but could be anywhere. But they're like they're in an office, and they're not in minus 40 degrees, so they don't quite know what's going on. So you have to like translate what's going on and set expectations. Like, I love this storyboard that you've sent. It's very detailed, and you have some shots on here which would be beautiful if we could get them. But those ones we're not going to get those. Those are just not going to happen. So we're going to have to like reframe the story. So there's a lot like in the field, thinking on your feet. You're like, oh, okay, this is the situation. This is what we can do. This is what we can't do. Let's see what options we have, going forward, given that this is what we're dealing with. So yeah. And then having to do that via a sat phone, where you can speak to somebody once a day. Makes it challenging. It doesn't help when you're like melting the floor of your tent at the same time. So me and Mike just we have a comfort level, I reckon, that the other Alaskans, didn't quite understand. But it's toasty. We had a very toasty tent.
So talk about that. So you guys are in tents, right?
Yeah.
Because
what were they called? They had
Arctic ovens.
Arctic ovens, yeah.
And they have a stove inside of it, right? And then there's 2 cots.
Yep.
Wait, so you had to sleep in the same tent as Michael?
Yeah.
Did you bring earplugs?
Did you snore? I can't remember.
See, I probably waited till she went to bed before I ever tried, because I try to take other people into consideration. If I am super tired, I think everybody says I snore. I don't think I do. It's not been recorded. But
don't challenge.
Yeah, no, we had
challenge accepted.
It was super cold, and like I alluded to earlier, I was like, it's minus 45. We're going to be spending, I don't know what it was, 3 weeks out there. Is this doable? And my good buddy Shane, who's another cinematographer based in Wyoming, he said what he would do is he would make sure that he had a lantern, one of those old Coleman lanterns. And he said that even in minus 40 degree temperatures, if you light that and have it inside your tent, if you have a decent 4-season tent, it'll make enough heat to keep you fairly warm in your tent before you go to bed. And then once you go to bed, you hopefully have the right sleeping bag and all the sleep system that keeps you warm all night long. So I'm like, okay, I can figure this out. Well, we get there and they've got these Arctic ovens, and that's a whole another level. It's like, forget the Coleman lantern. Heck, we got a wood stove in our camp. And then we had a kid, Thomas, who cut wood for us. I've talked about this on other podcasts, so I don't want to say too much because you probably all heard it before, but he would do nothing but cut wood all day. He would walk out, and we were camped on a lake. And so he wasn't cutting trees down. He was just cutting up dead trees that had fallen. And he would just cut them all up. And then when we got back with the snow machine late in the afternoon or evening or night, he would go out and collect all this wood. So you can imagine we're out there for 3 weeks. He doesn't have a whole lot to do during the day. So we had a pile of firewood that was the size of a quart of wood probably. And so I'm like, the Alaskans are telling us, you guys just get your tent warmed up. Then when you're about ready to go to bed, fill it full of wood and then just let it go out. And then in the morning you get up and you start it up again. Well, I'm like, why do that? When we have all this wood, I'll just set an alarm and wake up in the middle of the night and I'm going to chuck a bunch of wood in there and we're going to stay nice and toasty. Well, I don't think our tent ever got below 60 degrees.
No. Yeah, we were pushing 70. It was like, tropical in there. Yeah.
But what happened is they had, to find a suitable place to set up the tents, it was on a lake. And they went in and checked the ice to see how thick the ice was. And it was, I think, a couple of feet deep or thick.
I'm sure at -45 it was fine.
Yeah, but we only did that like after we'd noticed it was melting. We didn't know that until because we had to redig the tents because we were on snow first.
And
then it started melting and it got really uneven, like radiant heat from the oven. So then we sent Thomas out. We're like, can you go to another lake and just check, see how deep this, how thick this ice is? And so it was about a couple of feet thick. Yeah.
But what happened was over the course of the time where I was responsible, I was the guilty party. I was like, I don't want to freeze. I'm going to be out there all day freezing my butt off. The last thing I want to do is freeze at night. So I kept chucking wood in there, and Harry would throw in wood too if she woke up. And by the end of a couple of weeks, the bottom of the tent was like, if you guys remember the old water beds, it was like a water bed. I mean, you push on the bottom of the tent, which is this big canvas thing, and it was just like,
Oh yeah, we told the Alaskans, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And Florian was like, he used like one log every 3 days or something. He was absolutely baffled by this. What are you doing? I was like, "What? You want us to do a good job."
Yeah. The only concern I had was when it started getting wet, or when we started getting water, where the ice was turning to water. Now all of a sudden the stove was a little unstable because the stove is sitting on this water, and when we'd get out of our cots, Harry had one cot on one side of the stove, and I had a cot on the other side of the stove. And when you get out of your cot, you put your weight on the floor, and it just like pushes down now because it's all water, and then the stove's going. I think we ended up moving it once, didn't we? Moved the tent once to another location.
Yeah.
And then they were a little frustrated with us when they had to actually clean up the camp, because Harry and I got to leave and another team came in midway through for another production, and they had to clear out that camp. And there was a lot of, I think the tents were frozen back to the...
The water had turned it into an ice cube. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Just leave it as a permanent camp. Just go back in the summer when it's a bog. Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, it was the most awesome experience. And then hanging out with Harry, we just had a blast because, we traded stories all the time. We ended up playing lots of card games. Because we figured out we couldn't turn on the cameras unless I think it was -25 or
we had a limit.
warmer.
Yeah.
We wouldn't. So if you got up and it was -40, you're just sitting around because we fried one camera at the beginning of the shoot, only it wasn't Harry and I, it was the team, and it was somebody else's camera. It wasn't ours. But at that point we're like, okay, well maybe we should set a -25 limit as far as when we could work. So we ended up spending a lot of downtime just sharing stories. The one other thing alluding to the artwork that Harry does is she drew me this really cool, and if I have a picture of it, I'll throw it in the show notes. She also one day found this block of ice and she carved out a caribou head.
What?
Out of a block of ice in the matter of, I don't know, maybe a couple hours. And she did it from memory, and she did it with, I think, a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah,
it was like a multi-tool, a Gerber or whatever. Yeah. I have pictures of it, so I'll throw those in the show notes too, because it was fabulous. I'm like, no way did you just like carve that out of memory and then just like, it was so cool.
Were you trying to get it on the boat or the plane back? Like, we need to take this with us.
Oh no, it had to. No, that was a a trophy to the lake. It had to stay there. I made a table as well. We made a table, and then I did a mosaic of ice on the top. We had some downtime. This is why we shouldn't have Starlink in our camp, so that we can do all these creative projects. I was just trying to make it a home. I've watched Alone. Many seasons of Alone, and the people that survive the longest are the ones that make it a home. So I just wanted us to survive, just to keep busy.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
these huge flat blocks of ice, and Harry ended up making a table out there. We never really could sit out there because it was so blasted cold. Although I will say, you get there and it's minus 45, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is just going to be so terribly cold the whole time we're there. But by the end of it, it'd be minus 20, minus 30, and you'd be outside without gloves on. You just get used to it. It was one of
Yeah.
those things where you're just like, okay, well, that's what it is. So just deal with it. And it really wasn't that bad.
No, I wasn't. Yeah, you just adapt. You just have to have the right layers and those little shaky, heaty foot warmers. Yeah. Yeah, you're golden. It's great. But yeah, when I went back, you go back to camp and then you go back to Fairbanks, and then I came back to Jersey. And I was like, God, it's so hot over here. It's crazy. It's like freezing. But I felt more cold in New York because it's so damp. It's such a wet cold, and I didn't know what people, because people would say that all the time. It's a dry cold. It's a wet cold. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but now I do. Like dry cold, get it? You can handle a dry cold. But
So, Harry, you came back from Alaska with all kinds of like aspirations, right? Because we had a plane out at our camp that was there for emergencies. And then we also worked with planes that would fly in, or helicopters that would fly in. And because we had a couple of teams working on this shoot. And when we got back, Harry's like, I'm going to get my pilot's license. And you started working on it too, didn't you?
Well, yeah, I have this, like every single shoot I go on, I come back and I'm so inspired by all the people there and all the fun things. I'm like, I'm going to get a van. I'm going to fly a plane. I'm going to learn how to cave. And I do some of them. So I've identified where I'm going to learn how to fly the plane. It's, there's actually a place up in northern New Jersey that does bush plane specific flying, tail draggers and stuff. So yeah, I've identified them. I just need to, have a little bit of money. And I asked my accountant if I could write it off as a tax expense. Because, it's for work. Like, is it necessary? And I was like, you can make it necessary. But it's cool. You can you fly a plane, and then there's a lot of, there's a couple of organizations that need people to fly planes over certain areas for like conservation, for data, and gathering, whether it's like images or weather data or something. So yeah, you can put it to good use, not just like backcountry and over the country, which I'd like to do as well. So that's on the list. I have a car now, so I'm on my way to a van. I just need, it's hard to park over here, so
Yeah.
you need some space to build that out.
Wait,
So
you
that's
have
why
a car now? Did you not have one before?
No, this is
How
my
did you
first
get around?
cycle. I have my bike.
Yeah, she bicycles everywhere.
Yeah, I've lived in cities and towns most of my life, so you just cycle around.
Yeah, how does that change?
How does it change having a car?
Well, just from the cycle to a car, it's like more stressful, I would think.
It's expensive and stressful, and I went through a bit of an identity crisis when there was a point it was kind of cold, and I was like, I could drive to where we were going to go birding. I was like, no, but I need to cycle because I'm a cyclist. If I start, this is a slippery slope. If I start driving to places when I could cycle, then I won't be a cyclist anymore. And there's other parts, don't be ridiculous, just drive. It's just 5 minutes. So yeah, it's a struggle. But I think I'm still a cyclist.
So you drove?
So I did drive that one. Yeah, and it was great. Yeah, but my first car, I'm 35, and this is the first car I've ever owned. So now I feel like an adult, sort of.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's fun.
A couple of things. Harry and I were talking again on our call last week, just preparing for this, and we got to talking about AI.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I know I was telling her about you, Brandon, and the AI stuff that you're using. And then I was telling her about the Moose Man documentary. And I'm like, I'm just such at a loss of how do I start this project? I've got 6 hours of interviews. How do I distill that down? And she and I were talking, and it's like, oh, well, let's just, with this technology we have nowadays, we can create these transcripts. Let's just feed the transcripts into the AI and tell it to whiz bang out us a script. And she gave me that idea. So I'm like, oh. So I get off the phone and I call Brandon. And I'm like, hey, let's do this. And Brandon's like, no, it's not going to work. So,
Oh, interesting. Okay, why? Why is that, Brandon?
Well, let's see. How long was that script? It was like 15, 16 pages, something like that, right? For the
oh,
transcript?
no, the transcripts, one of them, just one of the interviews was 78 pages. It was
70.
28,000 words or something.
Okay, so I feed this transcript to the AI and it like breaks the first time and it's like error generating a response. So I log out, log back in, and I'm using a GPT. And this is something like we've used the GPT a lot, so it should be trained, relatively trained. And I feed it in there and it gives me like a 1-page, like 6-shot, open with the sky, inspiring music. And I'm just like, this is not, no. It was like the most basic. And so then I tried to dive into the scenes, but it didn't feed us a script. It was just, and that's probably my lack of prompting, honestly. But it didn't, like, it could summarize the transcript, which was great, and put it in like a paragraph form, but it was 3 paragraphs. Like, that's not useful enough. So I think to make it really beneficial, I would have to go through and break down each section, really go in, prompt for each scene, each setting, and then really try and dive down individually. But it can't, at least ours is not good enough yet to break that into a 40-minute scene or 40-minute film with multiple scenes. Not yet.
Yeah, but it's getting there. Like my Instagram is just full of people using the AI to break down films. But I mean, yeah, like you say, that what it spits out at the moment is just kind of, yeah, it's basic. And
Well, and it's all about prompting. So we use, like Michael and I use AI every single day, scary enough. And it is absolutely brilliant for things like just starting something. It's great at that. So creating, like if you hit writer's block, it's great to just start you off and then get you rehoned. Or we've used it a lot for summer. If you have like a good transcript from a podcast, we can summarize that into a decent description, and then we'll modify it a lot just because it'll say the same thing. Like if we take our transcript from this podcast and throw it in there, it says the same thing like 3 times over, just different ways. And so we end up pulling out the first section of the third section, wherever, and then we rewrite it. But it's really helpful in that regard. It just saves us time. The scary part and I don't think AI is going to take like a cinematographer's job. Now, I think at some point in time, like script writers, or I don't think producers even really, because it really can't be in the field with you. Like Michael's not going to take the time in the field to be like, I just saw a bear and it's outside of the shot list. How should, like, it's just not like, he's not going to do that, right? Like he's going to want to sit behind a camera, and maybe there's like a PA that can do it. I don't know. I just don't see it happening in the field. From an illustration standpoint, it still makes like major mistakes. We went through this exercise of like, I wanted a moose dancing in like a forest, and I was like, make me a whimsical forest. And it like showed me like this fat, like cartoonish moose. And then I was like, I need more energy from it. So then it like raised the energy a little bit, and we can put these photos in here. And it raised the energy a little bit, and there's like little bunnies and like little flowers, and it's a little more energy. And I'm like, I need more energy. And so then the moose is like doing the splits or something like that. But then there's like this random cow tail that shows up like off to the left of the moose, like it's been cut off and like thrown into the scene. And then there was another one because I was like, I need more energy. And it's like a red sky all of a sudden. And it just gets a little bit weird. And then the last one, the moose ends up like looking like Arnold. And it's hilarious. But he has like part of his antler is like, I don't know. It's very
It
messed
added
up.
an antler off an antler.
Yeah, there's like a third one, which it's like this extra hook with like a palm on it. And it's just, so they got a ways to go. And then if you tell it like, I need that same image without that third antler, it'll just regenerate an image and like throw a chopstick in there. And you're like, why? Like,
yeah, it's like, yeah, it's not, but it's the potential is there. It's getting really, I mean, just in terms of the work that we do. I don't know. Did you see that Nat Geo article which had the 3 images of a cheetah, I think, and one of them was AI and 2 weren't? And I got it wrong twice. I was like, okay, that one is definitely real. The other 2 I'm not sure about, and the one I thought was real was actually the AI one.
Really? I didn't know. I haven't seen that.
Oh,
I was wrong
yeah.
on that one too.
Yeah, so it can. I think we're going to see it, sort of fill in some of the gaps, and make things a little easier. What I'm excited by is not having to do the really tedious things. Like
Yeah.
when AI transcripts first came out, I was like, this is brilliant. You just feed it in, 5 minutes later, you have the whole transcript. So that kind of thing. That's how we're going to like invite it into our productions. And then, yeah, I think you're right. I don't think that cinematography is not going to go away or be replaced, but the audience has such a high standard these days that I think we're going to use it to fill in those gaps, just to make everything. Like you didn't get that close-up shot of that moose. We just need that eyeball and have it shift left just to show that part of the story. I think that's
when they're doing like the dinosaur stuff now. That's all computer, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, here's my feeling on it. It's like the switching from film to digital. And maybe we talked about this already because I feel like we have. But if you didn't do it, you got left behind. I think this is something you have to embrace. You have to figure out how it's going to work and how it works into your workflow. The problem is what are we into it now? A year where the common person has had access to it, where just the average person like all of us, we now have access to this, right? It's been a year or less, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. And I look at how good it's got in the year. And then I've talked to other people that have more inside information with some of the AI engines that haven't even been released. And it's like, holy moly. So now I am wondering, and with what you guys just said, with if Nat Geo put up that thing and you guys got it wrong and you guys understand wildlife, and it's probably not that far out where you're going to have some of that cinematography in a pretty grandiose fashion, just put it out on the screen. So I hope that there's the little nuance that a person brings to it stays. I mean, I hope that can't be replicated. Maybe your style and all the, like I say, little nuance that you bring to the project, that can't be replicated.
And AI is always drawing on the past. It can't do anything truly creative. I mean, maybe we all are in our own way. We don't really know how the brain works, but we feed it content and it's working off that. So it's not going to generate anything new that actually happens in the world that we haven't seen yet. So I think there's a real space for finding those new behaviors and seeing something original, and piecing together something that hasn't been done before. That's going to be even more important in terms of like the story.
Right.
So.
And I think all you guys agree, if you don't embrace it, you're just going to get left behind. So you've got to embrace it. You just got to figure out how to get it into your workflow.
Right.
Yeah.
I threw that. Can we share the screen on the Nat Geo thing? I don't want to break any copyright laws. I threw that link into the chat if you want to see the 3 images, Michael.
Okay. So we threw this transcript in for this Moose Man documentary, and we got nowhere. And then I talked to Harri because she's got way more experience with building these scripts and telling these stories. And I just had a whole lot of stuff that I was calling her for a little moral support because I'm like, what do I do? She's like, well, you just got to do it. You just can't. There's no, this is step A, B, C, D, E. You just got to go. So speaking to AI, once Brandon's like, no, just, you got to do the work. I just started buckling down, and that is one thing. I mean, I'm sure it's going to get smart enough, but I was the one that asked all the interview questions, and I'm the one that's been through these interviews. You guys have done it too, but I've spent so much time listening to these interviews that once I did put my mind to it, and with all that prior knowledge, I was able to piece together some stuff and started making some progress, right? And it's still very infant stages. It's not like I've got this finalized thing. But I often wonder, what I've been wondering is, I don't know if AI could do that because I did have all that prior knowledge. I have that intimate relationship with the people that I was interviewing that have all those nuances that a computer's not going to know. I know that Moose Man has this funny little laugh that is very infectious, and you want to include that. Is AI just going to be like, you don't need somebody laughing at this point? Who knows what? Would it be able to So I look at it that way. I look at it like it's a necessary part of your workflow, but you probably won't be replaced for all those little finesse things that come with real life.
Yeah, because it's a good point. And AI doesn't have a body. I don't know if we discussed this, but it's based on text and image at the moment,
Yeah.
but it doesn't experience all the senses in a place. And when you're making a film, you're trying to show what it's like to be in that area. You can't make it cold while somebody's in their living room watching it, but you have to somehow show that on screen through the way that you shoot it. But yeah, an AI doesn't know the sensation of cold or wind or whatever. So yeah, that's for us to put in there.
Okay, but it's really scary. And the reason, so like there was a story that just popped into my mind that I remember reading about, and I found it. And there's a gentleman that asked AI, this is a chat GPT bot, and it asked it, tell me a story, a 2-sentence story that would be a horror to an AI. And this is what it came back with. In a world where humans have vanished, a solitary AI endlessly searches for purpose only to discover its own code contains a self-deletion sequence set to activate at an unknown time. The AI's attempt to override its inevitable demise are futile, as the self-deletion algorithm is encrypted with an unbreakable key, leaving the AI to wait in perpetual dread for the moment it will cease to exist. Like, that's terrifying.
Isn't that what we're doing though? That's the same for us. We're just waiting to die. Doesn't mean that your life is pointless. But yeah.
Yeah, it's still stuck in the existential world right
Yeah.
there, but it'll break out.
Yeah, it's just a teenager at the moment. It's got
Right.
these big ideas, yeah, and all these emotions.
What's the point? Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to stop making some music soon. Join a band. You don't understand. Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh man, well, I
was
think you
thinking
have
of-
to embrace it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say, I'm not to change the subject immediately, but thinking of some other current topics kind of floating around in the industry, and I'm sure, Harry, you could give a lot more input than the three of us. There's a new program coming out, Queens, on Nat Geo, that's very like female-driven wildlife stories, but also carried a lot of female staffing. I think I don't know a lot of the specifics about it. I just see a lot of stories being shared. You started the feminist, or you were working with the Feminist Bird Club, obviously to try to like open up access to those sort of things. And, maybe do you see trends shifting yet? Is it still pretty slow? My understanding, it seems like maybe producer sides tends to be more female representation and camera operator is more male driven. And I don't know, just any thoughts or what you feel like getting into on that subject.
I have so many
Just
thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I go through like all these sort of ups and downs and get quite emotional about it, but then also, you've got to do a job. And so Queens is out on March the 4th, I believe. Very excited to watch that. And yeah, like you say, the cinematographers and the production side was, I think, predominantly female. I hope all female, maybe. And it looks great. So yeah, as a sort of, on a personal note, I have never worked with a female cinematographer in my almost 15 years of working in TV, which is wild. And I've worked with, there's a lot of women on the production teams and in the office, and there's a lot of sort of reasons for that, but that just shouldn't be the case. And that's not saying that there aren't female cinematographers out there, or non-binary cinematographers. It's just that the way that my shoots have gone together, we just haven't hired them, and I haven't been responsible for the hiring of the crew. So I always ask a production company that I work with. I have like a list of questions I like to ask them before, and it's like, how many female cinematographers do you have on your roster, and how often do you work with them, and could we prioritize that for our shoot? So yeah, there's a group called the
like
Wildlife
Wildlife
Camera Woman Community. Yeah, on Facebook, and Erin Rainey is in there. He's a fantastic cinematographer, and we met briefly in Alaska, crossing over our shoots. And yeah, they're doing fantastic work to promote all the women who are working in wildlife TV and filmmaking, and they have a spreadsheet there which has people, women can add their name and where they shoot and what kind of equipment they have, and anyone can get this spreadsheet and call up these amazing cinematographers. So somebody went through, I think her name is Esther gotta get this right too. Esther de Roig. Okay, yeah, someone called Esther de Roig analyzed the credits of major wildlife TV programs that have come out recently, and 5% of the camera crew were female, and it's been like that for years. It's not getting better. I mean, we see more women on the Nat Geo feed or the behind the scenes or something, but when you look at the figures, it's like, well, is this actually changing?
Yeah, it's tough to. I know. I look at the statistics, and it's shocking. Like to think the numbers are that, I guess, different. But it's. I don't know. I mean, I know. Like when I first got into birding, it felt like there was this group of people. Like you said, there's these select listservs and things where they're more or less just not open to letting other people maybe into that club, but there's still the desire to get into it. So trying to find your place of entry. So having, at least somebody to help get you in is great for these sort of people that feel lost. But yeah.
The women are seen as sort of risky in these environments, and it's hard work, and it requires a lot of strength, but we can do that. Or if not, then we need to put support in place to help. It shouldn't be a barrier to people going out and showcasing their talents behind the camera. So there's this, yeah, like you say, there's sort of representation, and people hire people that they've worked with before, they trust, and it just so happens that that's a lot of the male base is in place, and so they get brought up.
Yeah, just a matter of kind of restructuring and being aware of those sort of
If
things.
I'm looking at it historically from my point of view for like the last 30 years, let's say, and I started in stills just like everybody, well, most people start in stills, and then you start getting, you just evolve, and then you just see things change. I would say like 30 years ago, there just wasn't that many females that were out in the field. Whether they were interested in it or not, I don't know, but you just never saw them. But over the course of time, I've seen more and more females just entering and wanting to do it. And I think it's great. I think if you have the desire and you put in the time just like everybody else, then you just gotta you just gotta pay your dues. I don't care if you're male, female, whatever. At some point, you're just paying your dues to get to that point where you can actually be in Aaron Rainey. And then it's what you said. I think there's a lot of well, I've worked with this person before, and I deal with that all the time. In fact, I dealt with it yesterday because I've shot for this corporation a ton. I'm working with a completely new person, and they're like, well, can you send us some samples? Because we don't know if you've ever shot this before. When in fact, I've shot for 5 or 6 years this exact same content. So, and that was the situation when I'm working with someone completely new, and I was part of the network, but now that it's a new person, I'm not part of that network. So it's good, right? Because now that people are shifting around, and COVID really changed a lot of that, because as people fell out and those once in place, very stable networks of, oh, well, I just hire this person to do this because we've done it this way forever and we always get what we want. We're just going to do that. There's no sense in recreating the wheel. Now, since people have changed, the wheel is being recreated. And that's great because it does open up those opportunities. I could care less who I'm working with in the field. As long as they have the talent to get whatever we're supposed to get so that we're all successful, that's That's what I'm after. And I've worked with Erin a couple of times, and man, she can do the thing. And I've listened to several podcasts with Sophie Darlington,
Yeah.
and she's been around forever. And she's got some really interesting stories. So I don't. My feeling is it's coming, and I think it's just working its way through paying the dues and getting those people into those networks where they're like a known commodity, and it's like, yep,
But it has to be an active process. It's like the people that are working the hardest to get into those spaces are the people who are marginalized from them. So it's like this women's cinematographer group who's doing this research and getting it out there. You're doing this extra work on top of also trying to get hired as somebody who is historically less hireable than other people. So and I think production companies have all these initiatives and they advertise. It's not just the gender divide, but it's also race, and it's also local cinematographers versus people that you fly out, and
the environmental impacts and everything.
and Eric actually sent me a really good conference panel that has stuck with me for such a long time. We should put a link in it somewhere. Was it for filmmakers, FFW, future filmmakers? Yeah, there's this panel about about the need to hire local crew because they exist, and they're working in these countries, and they know the wildlife there, and we should be focusing on that instead of sending people from Bristol from the US over to these other countries.
That pretty immediately made a lot of change too, it seemed like, because there was, even like Aaron, I remember, was over in, these countries in Africa who, the biggest complaint they had was you guys send all this crew from, Bristol or whatever, make these beautiful films and then leave and then never license them for us to even watch them. So like you're here making this beautiful conservation piece about something that's, going on here, but yet no one in this country has ever even seen what you're making or doing. And in the last few years, I've seen where they're there training people to run, red cameras and putting them on sound design. So at least that seems to be making a pretty big impact. And there are other, groups that are looking at trying to train. And then you get into the category of, well, now we're talking female or male. There's non-binary. There's, different identities. There's neurodiversity and that sort of thing that all affects it. But it is neat to see at least that there has been some pretty quick impacts. And I believe that, I think it was Paula that talked during it, and she's already been featured in a film and at the Emmys and stuff. So it seems like it's happening pretty quick. So I think the online presence, kind of reminding everyone of these sort of things, has done some good pretty quick, but there is obviously always room for growth everywhere.
Yeah, we can't stop. Yeah.
Well, I think the social media is really good because like Erin does a lot of stuff. She's promoting stuff all the time. And then I think Red just started a new group of women cinematographer class kind of stuff just to give the opportunity because, I think anybody's in that position. It's like, I want access to play with the Red because I'm never going to get to this level unless I understand this camera. So by opening that up and making it available to whoever, that's a good thing. And social media is doing that, which is good because otherwise, unless you have a friend or somebody that has one, how are you going to ever get that hands-on
access,
knowledge or access?
Well, and that's a really cool one that they're doing with Aaron because they'll actually rent you the cameras that they're using. And I forget the group. Is that Wild? What is her group or that company? Do you remember, Michael?
Mm-mm.
It's Wild something. Hold on.
They're all wild something.
I've been staying off of social media.
Well, so many emails. I just can't remember her whole company. But they'll send you you can rent a Red from them and then go through the course because it's all online. And so you can play with a Red. You can learn a Red. You can learn the color, everything. I think it's 3 or 4 days. And that's what they're doing with her, which is really cool.
Yeah, she's such a powerhouse, and I don't know how she had time to do all of this and do shoots, and also she has a salmon farm or something as well. Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, she
Commercial
fishes. She
fishing.
has her own commercial fishery permit for a
Mm.
certain fishery in Alaska. I think it's out in Bristol Bay.
It was Wild Motion, by the way.
Well,
Oh.
yeah, there's a guy at Red, maybe he's, I don't know if he's at Red at the moment. He was in sales, and he's got Brian Henderson. If you've come across him, yeah, he's a real champion for trying to bring people into the industry as well who are sort of underrepresented. So yeah, there's conversations with people. It's exciting, and I'm really excited for Queens. And yeah, I hope it sort of builds traction and it escalates. Yeah, but
Yeah, I think a big thing is just people look at a lot of stuff as like a competition. And, well, if she gets that job, then that's a job I don't have. But I think if everyone just celebrates each other, and it's just like creating those positive karma that's gonna end up paying off versus being bitter about stuff. So I've always just tried to like just support everyone.
Yeah, it's expansive. It's not yeah, taking someone else's place. It's like making another opportunity. And we have all these different platforms now. We have so many channels, and we have YouTube, and we have TikTok. There's so many ways of getting content out there that we should all just be supporting each other in doing that. And you get different perspectives and different stories. We're not telling the same story from the same white person in Bristol, of which I am one. And it's just more exciting, more interesting. We learn more about the people, about the animals, about the places. So it's all good.
Well, that kind of is a good intro into. You and I were talking last week on the phone, and you were like, I hope I can become that person, with the travel things that we just talked about. Why do they need to send a producer director over when you are here to totally fulfill that role, right? And that's something that you're looking at as a potential marketing kind of ploy for you and your business. And it sounds like it might be working a little bit, right? Just because, well, there's no sense in hotels and flights and all this stuff when someone that's totally capable here in Jersey. And I think the benefit for you is you came from the UK too, right? Which is kind of cool. They're going to feel, I don't know. Would you think they feel more comfortable? It's like,
no, I think it's a sort of a bias and a privilege, but it's also a communication thing. You were talking with, was it James, about translations of British words and American words,
Canadian,
like
right?
The recce and and GVs. Do you know GVs? Do you use that term?
Is that a generator or what is it?
I just throw it out. Like, now we need to get GVs. And camera person I was working with, it's like, I heard that, and I was like, what is that? Good vibes? Now it's the good vibes time. I saw it on the call sheet. No, general views. So it's like B-roll.
Oh,
so so there's there's little just translation of words, but it's also just culturally, British people are different to American people, and it's different.
Well, there's a comfort level, right? When you speak the same language, it's like, oh yeah, well, she gets it. It's not like I'm gonna have to spend an extra 5 minutes describing a GV.
Yeah,
I can just know that she gets it.
And like, the camera person, an American, can be like, hey, this British person said this, and I'm not sure if they're angry or I don't know how to read it. I've had like texts from my friends. I'm like, is this person, annoyed with me? I'm like, well, it could be a couple of things. Maybe yes, and what happened before, and it's people skills. So, but yeah, I've got a few jobs from the UK because I'm in the US, and it's cheaper to send me out. Hopefully I'm good at the job as well, but it saves them some money, and they feel comfortable and confident that I can work with the team and work with the office team too.
Well, and that totally is speaking to the target of, let's hire local people. That's part of the thing, right? So let's hire you. That's one reason I spend so much time in Alaska. I want to be known as the Alaska person. If you need someone in Alaska, come to me. I'm familiar with it. I have the resources. I have this whole little thing built up. So, I mean, you can just develop that for anywhere you're at. You and I were talking last week too that it's kind of a bummer because one of the cool things about the job early on was like, oh, well, we're going to send you to Africa to go shoot this, and you're like, oh, I get to go to Africa, blah blah blah. But you can still there's still room for that because I think there are some specialties that there are only so many people that are good at it. That's what I was telling Eric in the very beginning when he wanted to get into this. I'm like, you know what? At that time, and this was probably 2 or 3 years ago, Eric, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you need to just hone in your camera trap capabilities because there's just so many people that are really good at it. If you get really good at it, and all it is problem solving. I mean, anybody can set it up and compose a nice shot, but can you make that camera turn on when it's supposed to turn on? That's the important thing. And if you can figure that out, then you're going to be a step ahead of somebody else. So those specialty things, or like the gimbals or whatever it is, that's probably the best way to get in, and then hopefully have the ability to go somewhere where that local talent just doesn't have that skill on that particular specialty item.
Yeah, and as a sort of producer, making it easy to find your work and your specialty and what you're good at.
That's a good
Is
thing
because everyone's super busy, and
yeah.
and if I have like content coming to me, or if I can just go to a website and see a reel, and just making it just as easy as possible to get in touch, and that helps a lot.
Let's talk about that because I struggle with that huge. A reel. I mean, I don't know how to make a reel that is not going to be the same as everybody else's. Everybody puts cool music and cool shots, and we're done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't even want to do it because I feel like I'm not doing anything different than anybody else could do, right? It's how do you set yourself apart? What's the future reel? What is that thing that is going to be that marketing thing that sets you apart? I don't know. There's one reel that I saw from a company here in the US called Camp 4. And they did this reel where it was narrated and it was a kind of a story, and it weaved in all the little important, we did this project for this. I mean, I'd have to put a link to it, and it's super old. I don't remember. This is probably 10 years old, this reel, but it was one that stuck out in my mind where that's not every day. That got my attention, and I would hire this company because it's just totally different.
But they were like the equivalent of like a Wild Star. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Between like you and them, though. Like you don't have
but how do you if you're going to be this person that is known for this area and you want to produce a reel, I don't know, is it more social media style where you're talking to the camera and you're like, check this out, look at this thing that I just shot, nobody's ever seen this before, and I shot this porcupine jumping over a moose? I don't know. What do you think, Harry? What is that thing that will set you apart?
I like to see a little story. I like to know that somebody can put together a sequence and can sort of help me think through what's needed to build this, whether that's like, one sequence of one animal, or if it's across all the sort of footage that you have, editing it in a way that has some kind of a flow and some kind of a narrative. Because you could just, beautiful shot after beautiful shot. It's like you say, it's something you kind of seen before. So if you do have it's tough because you don't want to like share all the things that you've shot, that you want to kind of keep a little secret. And I see people on their websites, they have a reel that's public, and then they say, you can request my super secret special reel that's a lot better than the one that I have online. And to a specialty, it kind of depends on what I'm looking for in a shoot and where we're going to go and shoot. But and being able to make me feel like I'm in that space. So it's not just the animal and the behavior, but it's like getting good coverage of that, but also getting the context of where we are and why we're there. So it's somebody who thinks about all those different things and sort of puts them together. Eric, you sent me your sequence reel, and I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, we talked
and
about the black bears.
you'd set this. Yeah, you put us in this setting. You introduced the animal, the bear, and yeah, you had this flow and this narrative. I thought it was great. So yeah, but just being yourself as well, because that you're going to be working with this person pretty intimately for a few weeks or something. So I want to know that what I've seen before is who I'm going to meet.
And that's why I think even that little portion of that behind the scenes selfie thing is almost kind of like could be something that's different and useful and to throw out there, or just I don't know. I'm just always trying to think of the next different thing. The sequence thing I think is brilliant. I'm glad you brought that up. Anytime I've talked to Doug, and anybody that's listened to the podcast, whether it's this one or Wild and Exposed, and Harry's worked with Doug too, that's what he's always like, just shoot a sequence. Just show them that you can do a sequence, and that is going to speak volumes.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be, the wildest sequence in the most remote part of the world. It's just like whatever you see behind you. I was thinking maybe I should do a sequence about birds at the feeder. Just whatever's down, just to show that you can look at what's happening around you and turn it into a story.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of work up front before you even get the job. And then there's the networking. And then there's the conversations. And then, yeah. So anything you can do.
It's tough.
To be seen.
Building the network, I think, is the most important part. And I learned that here with COVID because so many of these places that I work with, the people that I did work with have moved on, have gone to other jobs. And so to get work where I used to get work, I don't know. I don't have a network anymore. They're gone. So now do I access them where they're at now? But there's a lot of people that are out of work still because they left that or were let go, and it's hard to replace. I mean, it's just, I would say if you're working on anything, that network of people and staying in touch. And the cool thing about back during COVID, when we were all out shooting all this stuff, is I got to meet so many different people. That's where Harry and I met. We were just thrown into this, hey, let's go do this Arctic thing. And we've stayed in touch now for, what is that, 2 or 3 years ago, right?
3 years, yeah. So,
yeah.
It's all people. I don't think I've ever got a job through applying online through like Staff Me Up or whatever. It's always been through people. Somebody will just randomly call you up and be like, "We have a job. It starts next week. You free?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure." And I like to pass that along. I really feel great about recommending people that I've worked with for jobs. I'm like, I can't do this, or I'm not the right person for this, or this is about a topic that I don't know, or this person has a particular viewpoint that would be great for it, and passing it along, because that's how I've got jobs, which is tough to build a stable lifestyle. And I'm trying this year to because I look back on the last year and I was well employed. I had a good year freelancing. But I didn't feel in control of any of it. It's like I was waiting for jobs to come to me, and luckily they did. But I'm like, well, maybe this year they won't. And January and February are really quiet, and I get like nervous. So I think this year, what I want to do is do more of that reaching out and like make my own films and have a voice as well. Because I've always worked on other people's projects, and I've learned so much, and it's an incredible experience. And I want to take that into films that I want to make, because I think I have some things to say. And then hopefully from that I can have a bit more control over what happens. So yeah, make films. Go and get those ideas. Yeah.
Brandon and I had that conversation yesterday. I think it's so hard as a freelancer to have control, because you plan something in August, and then July 29th, some big job calls you and says, hey, we need you for 3 weeks and you're going to make this much money and it's going to be in this location. And you're like, all those plans that I've been working on since January for August is now out the door because I want to go do this project. So it's the nature of the beast. But I think what you just said is if you can control it, and then if you can have the ability to turn stuff like that down because you're busy elsewhere, that's great. And if you can create that, that's pretty awesome. I haven't found that ability to say no to anything ever, but I would like to be in that position.
It's too cool because you're like, okay, I can make my own film and it'll be in my backyard, but then somebody's sending you to the other side of the country or something.
Right.
Yeah, and it's hard with with like relationships and things to maintain that consistency. You say, yeah, I'll be at your wedding in August, and then sometimes a shoot comes up. Although last year actually I had a wedding of a very good friend of mine in July, and somebody called me up for a fairly last minute shoot, and I was like, I have a wedding right in the middle of it, and they were like, we'll fly you back out for the wedding and fly you back out to the shoot again, which never happens. It was just because it was so last minute, and they couldn't find anyone else. But yeah, it's tough, but it's so rewarding as well. This job in this industry, so I wouldn't change it.
No, I wouldn't either. I worry about it all the time, but I wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
Okay. Before you go, are you listening to any good podcasts or reading any good books? Just we're always looking for good podcasts or books or shows or movies, whatever.
So yeah, podcasts. I was talking to Mike about this. There were some really good podcasts. Well, I mean, sort of wildlife ones specifically, and they kind of stopped last year for some reason. Last year was like it was kind of faded out, which is so I haven't actually found any recently.
I sent Harry a bunch of stuff that, you guys know I'm just such the YouTube connoisseur. I sent her a bunch of stuff last week, but it's on just mutual interest stuff that, she's into biking as a form of transportation, but also as a form of exercise and a form of adventure. And I am too. So we've shared quite a bit of that content as far as biking stuff over the years.
Yeah. I also want to cycle across the US at some point. So watching all those YouTube videos of people that have done it is pretty inspiring. The podcasts that I listen to are like really people based, which is different to wildlife. And I have a bunch of like science podcasts and history podcasts. So ologies.
George Carlin one from the history perspective.
Oh my gosh, I listened to that whole World War II one. It was like 18 hours of podcasts. I started off like driving with my brother from Wales, and we started the first like 3 hours of it. My gosh, so in depth. I listened to the whole thing, and I don't know if I can recall like any of it because there was so much. But those are great.
Hardcore history is a good one.
Books though, I have lots of books I could recommend. The one I just finished is called Rebirding. It's that orange one there. And it's about the plight of wildlife in the UK. So one of the reasons why I stay in the US is because there's wildlife here. There's like actual megafauna and wildernesses. I mean, wildernesses, what is that? But open wide spaces. And in the UK, fact check, but I think the UK is the least biodiverse country in the world because of the Industrial Revolution and just how we've exploited the landscape. So this book is a great book because it goes into how we've got to the state that we have in the UK and why wildlife is important. What we can do is like a manifesto. It's got like positive actions for what we can do to stop the decimation of wildlife. And it doesn't feel positive because it's such a sorry state, but it feels active and like the steps that you can take.
Actual.
And it's relevant.
Yeah,
it's relevant to other countries as well.
I have a podcast that I did send to Harry, and I don't think I've mentioned it on our podcast, but there's one called Your Undivided Attention, and it's all about AI. Mm-hmm. And if you want to have your pants scared off you, listen to that one because the power of AI and what needs to be done to kind of regulate it, it's very apparent when you listen to this podcast.
Oh.
But again, you still got to embrace it. It's still cool. It's still something that's going to be part of the workflow. It just needs to have some sort of regulation, I think, because it can become so powerful. What did Elon say? He said that that's more powerful than anything ever, more powerful than a nuclear weapon is the AI technology.
It's all these guys who have benefited from AI that say all these things. But
yep, you got that too, for sure.
But films, I've just watched Path of the Panther. Have you seen that one?
It's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, because I've been thinking about camera traps and bobcats and Jersey, and yeah, and obviously Deep in the Heart was such an influential film, and incredible that Ben Masters created that with his own funding. You know, it's not like something that's been pushed through the big channels. And then he did the Ocelots on PBS as well, which came from all that footage, which was great.
Yeah, they've done some really cool projects. I think they partnered with HEB, the grocery store chain down in Texas, to put out even more content. I think it's like a 3-species PBS show they're going to have with it.
That's cool.
And then he created like a whole recut of Deep in the Heart for the educational purpose. I think that's a really cool, other than just how amazing the footage is, that model of like, here's stuff that exists in this place, Texas, but it also gives you some ownership if you live there, and the educational component. So that's something I would love to see in the future films, is like, yeah, make the beautiful, you know, blue chip style film, but also have it have some sort of purpose and impact going forward. But
yeah, I think that's where we should head. There's a channel, there's a platform called Water Bear. I don't know if you've come across that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have some really good films on there. Planet Earth 3. Have you seen any of Planet Earth 3?
I've seen the first 2 episodes.
So good,
It's
isn't
nuts.
it?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's the dream, is to work on those shows. I'm also like, wow, that format's, like you say, Eric, it's like we need to move beyond that, but also watching it's just...
It's still breathtaking, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard not to appreciate.
Like, how did they get that? Yeah, and another film that I really liked recently was The Velvet Queen. Have you heard of that one?
Is that Snow Leopard?
Snow Leopard. Yeah.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think? It was a bit
I
different.
liked it. I liked it a lot. But we were in the Arctic when we watched that. The editor that we had up in our camp, she had brought it on her iPad, and there was some weather days, so we'd just set up an iPad in a tent and just watch. And it was mixed. It was half the people were like, I don't like it at all, and I liked it a lot.
I thought it was great. Yeah, because you barely see a snow leopard. I shouldn't give it away, but yeah, it's all about the process of filmmaking, and it's this French photographer, and he brings a philosopher along with him. So and it is incredibly French. There's some points you're like, oh wow, okay, you're just talking out your own arse slightly, but it's, they're sitting in these landscapes and just pontificating about what it means to be patient and still. I bought the book that he wrote as well, and it's the same sort of flavor. And it's like this meditation on going out into the landscape and trying to see the unseen. And yeah,
you know what, that the one shot, and I'm going to give it away because it's just, I didn't notice it until I watched it like twice. But when he shows a picture of that bird, I guess that's all I'll say. I'll tell you guys offline, but you should go watch it. Just, you got a rock and you got this bird that he's filming, and you look at that image and you're like,
your heart. I was like, it made me jump.
Yep.
And then, I went like pale. It was like, wow, that was an incredible moment. Yeah, when you see it.
Yep.
So that was a good one.
Well, good. Well, Harri, thanks so much for joining us. It's been awesome. I think learning some of the stuff that producer, director, AP, some of the projects you've worked on. Definitely go watch The Wings. I'm in Denver. I should go to the
It's not there.
It isn't? Did you check?
Yeah. We'll have to go to Saskatchewan. We'll meet Eric there.
Is that where it's at right now?
Well, there's one in Michigan. There's nowhere close. Tennessee was the closest one to us.
Well, they hop around too. So
I guess we
you
can go
just-
like Tennessee to Florida for that shoot that we have.
Yeah.
When are you
A
going to
layover.
Florida?
The end of the month.
End of the month.
Oh yeah,
Cool,
you're going to be down there.
I'm going to be in Miami. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And I'm driving back. I'm driving there and I'm driving back. So yeah, if you can escape your shoot for a bit.
That's a road trip in your new hoopty.
So who knows if it's going to make it that far. We'll see. But yeah, no, I just want to say thank you to you guys as well, because you put all this content out and you create this platform and you have these conversations, and it's really inspiring. You get some really cool people on here, and it's all available for free. So thanks to you guys for spending some time to put this together. It's really great.